Are you sure you've prepped for your session? I've prepped 17 hours. Is it enough? Is it enough? Welcome, scholars, storytellers, and fellow babysitter DMs. This is the Level Up Corner, led by yours truly, Wizo, as we delve into all the tips and tricks about Dungeons & Dragons. Today's topic is, how do you prepare for a session? Now, I'm not talking about how you should spend 17 hours preparing for a session. That is crazy. You don't want to spend 17 hours preparing for a session. No, my friends. No. Instead, this is going to be a guide as to how to reduce that time. And not reduce it too much. Because what happens if you prep too little? Well, my friends, if you prep too little, this is what we all fear. We all fear that we won't have enough content, that the players will breeze through an area, look to you and say, "What's next?" And you look at them and say, "That's a good question." And then there's this awkward silence. You don't ever want that as a DM. You want to be prepped for everything. And that's why you can't prep too little. But let's go conversely on the opposite end. This is against what most of the D&D community purports. It states that, if you are over-prepped, then you can just reuse material. And we'll talk about that later. That is a good thing. But if you prep too far ahead, you can kill your campaign in a worse way than just, it fell apart, I had no plan or anything. You instead burn out. See, I have burned out before in D&D. Burnout is a technical term for when you have lost the spark, joy, or care to even play the game. Now, over-prepping is when you prep 6-7 sessions in ahead, have the whole campaign written down, something along those lines, and you know what's coming up. You have the whole entire encounter planned. You are excited when the players get there in 8 sessions. For now, they need to get through this golem boss, whatever. It's kind of boring and everything, but they'll get to something cool. And the players catch on to that. The players see that you're not having as much fun right now, so why should they? And the campaign becomes a drag. The players take forever. They take even longer than what they would normally. You might never get to that cool point. Now, the ideal amount of preparation that you should do is 2 to 3 sessions worth of preparation. This way, you have gained the best of both worlds. You are able to see a little bit what's ahead, have the session prepped completely for what you need, and if your players go a little bit fast, you have some extra prep done. You're able to deal with it. If your players go a little bit slow, that's no problem. You're not trying to push them along to get somewhere else. You've only prepped 2 to 3 sessions. And if the players go and veer off into another direction, hey, that's only a session or 2 that is out the table, off the window, and it's not that big of a deal, really. But in prepping for these 2 to 3 sessions, what should we prep? Should we base our preparation based off how much time we put into it? Should it be 3 hours per session on the dot? Well, every DM's different, my friends. When I first started, it used to be 2 hours of prep to every 1 hour of play would be extraordinarily good. Now it's about half an hour of prep to an hour of play. Generally, that's how it is, or that's how it works out. And what you're getting from this is that time is irrelevant when you're trying to make a fixed way on how to prep for a session. You should not gauge it based upon the amount of time that you spend. Instead, you should focus on a few different things. The first is the environment. Now, this is the most important thing. 60% of your D&D sessions will be improvisation, making it up on the spot, making it up on the fly. And you might think, well, why do we prep? Well, if we prep the environment, if we prep the forest, the town where the players go into, we can improv correctly. We can bring things together. We know that they are in the town of Shilak, and in the town of Shilak, they are a Viking town. So they want to go and raid. They then have a Nordic culture of like brawn and steel, and of course the women have this as well. So everyone's itching for a fight, and the players steal something. You didn't anticipate they were going to steal it, so with a warrior culture, you can make up an idea that they will either have a harsh penalty or they must fight to prove their innocence. Yeah, right then and there, you can improv it based on the environment that you have. And you did prepare this environment that the players are in, so you have done some planning. The second thing that you need to prepare for your sessions is the plots. You need to get a loose overall idea of where the end of the campaign is going, where the players are starting in this session, and what they'll be doing in the next 2 to 3 sessions. Giving some plot ideas, giving some quest hooks, giving something for them to do. This way, if they screw up in the environment, let's say again, steal from another person, instead of going through the rite of combat, you have the Jarl come in. And he says, no, instead of sending you on a simple combat, I demand that you deal with a beast out in the wilderness. This is Garganfog. Whatever that is, I don't know. But you can make it up, or you have made it up, because this is something that the players need to kill. Originally, yeah, they were going to kill it for a reward. Now it's personal. Now they need to kill it in order to free themselves from the crime that they have been accused of committing, which they totally did. The third thing is NPCs. You've already heard about the Jarl. Well, you had to figure out a way to get them on that plot hook. NPCs populate the environment. You won't get every NPC, mind you. You may have your players go and say that, hey, I want to get a rainbow shirt in this place. And it doesn't make any sense. You did not make a rainbow shirt seamstress, but why not? Why not put her there as Dendely, the old veteran woman who's into sewing and everything else? Make it a little bit comical. But that's improvisation for NPCs, a little tangent. As for NPCs that you need to plan for your sessions, you need to have some important ones. Obviously, the Jarl, that's a basic one. You might want to have the blacksmith, anyone who has any plot relevance or will add to the environment. The last thing that you want to prep is least important. It's Divergent Pass. This is a cherry on top, if you can. The party needs to go and kill the Schmirgen, but whatever we call that thing. And instead of just killing it in combat, maybe this creature could be persuaded to move to a different territory because they could find herbs that would smell horrible. Perhaps this Schmirgen whatever has a handler who you could convince or make a deal with. Maybe have a divergent path that they could go on. Divergent paths are the cherry on top that you are able to plan as a DM. Now, this is where we go down the rabbit hole, because there is no end to divergent paths. Environment, solid. Plot, solid. NPCs, you could add a lot, but mainly solid. Divergent paths is where you can get a little crazy. Instead of trying to make a divergent path that is available for every situation, which is impossible, you can narrow it down in a few ways. You could create possible encounters that the players have to go through. These possible encounters have an environment. They have an NPC, obviously, like it could be a monster even that they're facing, and it should have some relevance to plot. Random monsters should not be thrown in just to throw in combat and soak up time. That's boring. No one likes it. What you should do is you could throw in a random monster and give a little bit of information about the environment. Maybe there's a new creature that's a subspecies of the Schmirgen whatever. That's a divergent path that they could do to get more information so that they could be more well informed. You can also narrow it down to a few different ideas. Barter, information. You can go with divergent paths, but always have a solid idea behind it. Combat encounter that relates to everything else. Bartering that relates to everything else that we've discussed, etc. And lastly, in order to help you narrow down your divergent paths, you could think of alignments. Now, this is a bit more wonky, but hear me out on this. If you think of the lawful good alignment, then they'll be able to just go down the main normal path that you have set for them. But what if they're chaotic? What if they're chaotic good? They bring back the head and it's dripping and it's terrifying people, or they try to scare the townsfolk. That could be an interesting path that could have consequences. There could be bandits or enemies that are looking at the players and saying, hey, this is a good idea. In fact, we could even go with the lawful evil, where they are hired by another lord halfway through their mission to not kill this creature. And they have a contrast. Do they go with that lawful area beforehand where they should have cleared their names? Or do they think they were wrong? Do they want to go with the laws and customs of a new Jarl and a new land? And this can open up a whole bunch of different paths. Primarily, the alignment method is best used to give ideas on a player quest hooks, to give them ideas as to what happens when they accept, refuse, sort of complete, but not really, an entire quest. The alignment method is best used for when your players are just starting out on a quest. Now, with these templates, you should have a very good idea of what to prep for your session. And the beauty of this is that if the players don't use any of your content, if you've prepped a little bit too much for the 2 to 3 sessions, you won't lose your spark. And yes, we already talked about it before, you can repurpose this content. And the longer you DM, the more content that you can just snatch from here and there, which reduces your prep time in the future. So I hope this video has given you an idea on how to prep for a session, or how much you should prep for a session. But once again, do not let me be the only voice of reason here. You all have some tips and tricks, so definitely leave those down in the comments below. And lastly, don't forget to like and subscribe so that we can reach more DMs out there and keep giving you these wonderful tips. Always remember that your players love and appreciate you. So keep rolling, my friends. Keep rolling.